Hey Andrew. Um,
Hi, Nick.
for the purpose of the group, I'd love you to just talk to us a little bit about yourself and what your role and what the bond board do.
Wow. I guess I'm going to start with myself, which is something I don't normally do, but I'll start with myself. Um, I've worked at the bond board now for a long time. It's getting on for 18 years. I haven't always been the chief executive of the bond board. I arrived as a project worker to develop a project on I think it was a 3-month temporary contract many years ago, obviously. And over the years, very successful delivering that project, applied for this role, and here I am many years later. I've actually been the CEO now for the last 14 years.
Well
Prior
done.
to that, I worked down in London, worked in homelessness. Um, my passion originally, when I when I started out, was and I was very young, I was going to be a maker, and I made pots, and I had my own little ceramic studio. So, and I moved north out of London, and I had this romantic idea, but I missed people, and I got a temporary job working with the bond board and working with people, and it kind of got me hooked and realised actually that's what I enjoy doing, is working with people as opposed to sitting somewhere thinking about how to make a vessel that someone may use. I guess it has its importance, but it's I get my energy from other people.
Well, you're
The,
lucky. You're lucky you found something.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I do feel very lucky. The bond board, it's a homeless charity, but unlike, well, our niche, and lots of people talk about their unique selling points, and the bond board doesn't necessarily have any selling point as such. It's more has a niche, which is the private rented sector. um, and I guess the appeal to me is working with those people, the underdog, the excluded, the forgotten, the invisible. And quite often people get placed in the private rented sector and they get forgotten about. If you're on a low income and or on benefits, life in the private sector can be tough. There is whole sections of I don't know if you ever look in an estate agent's window in central London and people are paying, thousands and thousands of pounds a week to live somewhere. That's not our target market. Our target market is very much those people who would struggle to get accommodated, don't have much money, and have burnt all their other options. So um, we did a piece of work a few years ago with the people that use the service, and one of the things that came back time and time again from people is why people told us about the last. So they were told about all the other options for housing, but they were told about us last of all because quite often people, certainly at the bottom end of the market where we operate, trying to raise standards for the in the private landlords, it's affordable housing. The perception is that people wouldn't want to live there, but actually for a lot of people they choose it because they get carpets, they get curtains, they get white goods, they get to live without stigma. They don't have to be in the middle of an estate somewhere. They get to escape some of the difficulties of not having much choice. I'm not saying there's a great deal of choice, but they get different choices rather than having to compete on housing options lists and which band you're in, where you're going to be waiting years. We're much, in that sense, we've always been, and we always try to be much more accessible. And we have a range of services. And one of the things that we have done at the bond board is diversify all the different things that we can do. The common theme in all of them, though, it's aimed at working with people who are living in the private rented sector, whether it's helping them maintain their tenancies through various different support services or through Housing First project pilot that we're in, or through our shared housing management scheme, where we which is a bit of a social enterprise as well, where we charge landlords for the service. It's about making the private sector accessible if you haven't got any money, overcoming the prejudice of people on benefits, people who've been homeless, chaotic housing history, offenders, drug users. It's overcoming those barriers for people, especially when they've been through all the social housing and the supported housing and the hostels, and it's all failed for them. Quite often they'll come to the bond board and it will succeed because it's about taking a risk, a leap of faith. Sometimes it's about giving somebody, I think it was phrased a few years back at one of our staff events, a third chance. You know, because
Lovely way. Well done. How many staff have you got, Andrew? How many staff work there?
Wow, it's an interesting question at this moment in time with the COVID-19 going on. We've been really fortunate that we haven't had to furlough anybody. And that's because we're having a bit of a growth spurt. And just before the lockdown and COVID-19 came in, we had 7 staff vacancies which we were advertising for. And it's meant that we pulled those vacancies. We've kept in touch with the candidates, and we're going to hopefully, when our learnings got up to speed about how we're going to interview and induct and actually work with people dispersed who've not actually seen, only seen like via this format, or so we're working on the onboarding process and the milestones and how they get to bake on board the culture of the bomb board about giving people chances and opportunities, working in a judgmental way, rather than just working in the way that the last project they've come from.
Cool. Those 7 people that you're looking to recruit, is that on top of how many have you got in the current
And
team?
to answer your question directly, how many people work at the bomb board at the moment? We've got 19 people, but
Brilliant.
as I say, we've got 7 vacancies.
So 7 out of 19 is a big percentage increase. Well done.
Yeah.
And how have you coped with the COVID? How's COVID been for your clients?
Oh, gosh. It's been challenging. I mean, the government has been quite good in some ways, in the sense they've increased universal credit, the DWP's become a lot more supportive, and because a new group of people have entered the universal credit world who are a lot more articulate, who are well educated, are speaking up, and actually the change in the DWP's approach to people on universal credit is very, very different at the moment. So that's a negative but a positive way for the people who've been there a long time. So they are seeing increases in money. They're not getting evicted because people aren't allowed to be evicted at the moment. But we are preparing and working with landlords, letting agents, remodeling some of the funding that we've got from the lottery and from Nationwide and various different sources for the post, when landlords start to be able to evict people and people have built up rent arrears, and we've got these new group of people. So we're preparing for that. So as I say, we are starting to recruit some of those 7 people. We're learning on our feet. We're already, I think we've got some interviews lined up in the process of at the moment via virtual, and they've done a co-production panel, so with people who've used the service, doing values questions, and then we're doing sort of like expert skills questions as a second. So it's this 2-stage thing, because nobody wants to be on a camera thing for a long time. We've partnered with other organisations to distribute food to people. Small social enterprise funded by the lottery, which had a van and some volunteers. That van is now being used to distribute food around Rochdale to 200 people a day in partnership with Tesco's and Greggs. And there's lots of small bits of money that we're applying for as a group. So I think we're working with Sanctuary and Angie's Angels, who we had relationships before this, and that's quite important. They are long-standing relationships with organisations that we trust. This isn't just a marriage's convenience, but long-standing relationships. So it was really easy within a matter of hours, well, let's say 2 or 3 days, to get the whole thing up and running. And they've got a team of volunteers. My staff team now are working from home, social distancing. Some are going to the offices, but we're doing lots of welfare phone calls, identifying what people need. A lot of people are lonely. A lot of people dealing with things, not getting prescriptions, not being able to get money because they're shielding, and just accessing services. So we haven't lost touch with the people we're meant to be helping, and we'll be able to send the van of volunteers with food, picking up prescriptions for people, being able to do all of that but in the back of our minds, we know very well, and the clients know very well, that we'll still be there in 6 months' time, or in 3 or 4 months' time, when the landlord comes knocking for the rent that they haven't been paying, or that, you know, and it's that long on-standing relationship, which I think is really important. And I think it's brilliant that lots of community groups are out there giving out food, but it's really clear that, I mean, the furlough scheme, for example, has been extended to October. So the government has sent a very gentle signal to all of us that this is a long-term thing,
Yes.
and an ongoing problem. And those problems of debt, of facing evictions, and coming to terms with unemployment for the first time, and domestic violence, we've put in lots of funding applications. A lot of them at the moment are short-term, small things. The lottery, for example, it's 6 months funding. Emergency fund, it's like, what can you do for £500? What can you do for £200? But by working in partnership with all these other organisations, we've been able to do a lot more. But our eyes are on the future, and we are remodelling. We had some money from the lottery for a project called Help Through Crisis. It's a housing advice and resilience project. And one of the things that we're looking at doing with that is, and we've had the conversation with the fund about, well, and they've said, put together the proposal, get on with it, sort of thing. It's what comes next. And it's a fast moving situation. And what's refreshing is the government are clearly saying, the scientists are saying, is they don't know. It seems to be a common thing.
Just listening
And
to
how
that,
we respond to that, don't know.
sorry, Andrew. Yeah, just listening to that, it's just fabulous. Someone like me to just hear of your confidence of having a medium and long-term view on it. I know a lot of people are very uncertain about planning to the future. I know there's so much uncertainty, so it's just genuinely lovely to hear that you're sort of thinking through various stages. Can I just move on to some of your experience with us and the Cranfield Trust? So how do you see that the Cranfield Trust has supported you and the bond board?
I think the significant thing that the Cranfield Trust has done for me is it's very much building around self-care. And one of the things I've always had in my mind, when you're in an organisation and leading it for a long time, one of my concerns is that I manage my blind spots. I address my weaknesses, because we all have them, and it's kind of like, I wouldn't want to be the person doing harm to my own organisation. And it's how you manage to maintain your self-awareness and don't get comfortable. And for a long time, I worked really hard to keep the organisation a size which I felt was manageable. And I think working, well, it wasn't no thought about this at all. It's about working with a fantastic mentor that I was aligned up with yourself, Nick. I was able to see that actually there was a way of building the organisation, creating a new, restructuring it, and it was a very different approach. I'm much more, I'm a squiggle. He was very much a square. My mind was, I bring things together, whereas they're much more, okay, logical, this, and I'm like, in terms of that creativity. And that very different approach actually gave me confidence in my own approach, but in terms of actually building, some of it was real practical stuff, like, well, you know, let's make your adverts to recruit staff, let's put that passion that you have for the work that you're doing in those adverts. Let's stop it being quite super functional, you know, let's make it more exciting. But at the same time, that self-care and development, whether it's the coaching that I've had as well from the Cranfield Trust, or the opportunities to speak, it's all been about building my confidence in the fact that I'm what I can do, but addressing those blind spots, which are really quite critical. Because if you're in a place for any length of time, well, it's where I'm coming from, I don't want to do any harm. So at the end of every week, I always say to myself, have I done any harm? And that's my underwriting principle for myself. And working with the Cranfield Trust reduces any harm that I might do from not being self-aware or being comfortable, because the Cranfield, the volunteers come in, the mentors, whether it's the coaching, whether it's you, Nick, and you will challenge me. You will ask me questions which will make me think. And well, actually, maybe that's a bit of the brain, my brain, I don't use very often, and I have
So
to use
some external support and some just
yeah.
another view to support.
I mean, yeah, you can just say external support, but that kind of like underplays the actual impact of it. And I don't think. I mean, it must be lovely to not have self-awareness. Must be lovely, but it's also quite dangerous in a leadership position. Really, really dangerous. And when you see leadership position and organisations going wrong, it's when they start to become blinkered and fixed. This is the way I'm doing it. I'm fixed doing it this way, and they're not willing to look. And the Cranfield Trust has helped me, and I'm sure it would help anybody else, to think, well, actually, there are other ways of doing it, and it is about ultimately self-care. That investment and looking after myself and that wider impact has an impact on the organisation, which is positive in the sense.
How do you say that it's so those
Tangible things would be that we have a different structure. It's gone from a very flat structure, so we've got a strategic leadership team, which has been developed with the help of my mentor and my coach. We have which has allowed the organisation to grow, which has enabled us to take on new projects, which has increased our turnover. So from a few years ago, it's what, £370,000. End of 2019, it's what, 630. End of the last financial year, which was March, it's about 725. So we've actually grown over the last 4 or 5 years, but because we've actually created a bigger structure. And I suspect we'll have to restructure again because the opportunities are beginning to flow, and actually creating a new power of responsibility also then frees me up to think about other things. It's been, in that sense, it's been quite liberating, because as I've grown, my organisation's grown with me in that sense. I've almost allowed people to flourish within the organisation. It's not so much just holding it back. It's not just about survival, it's about growth.
That's terrific. Thank you for sharing that. And then looking forward, so it's been lovely working with you, I've got to say, and lovely to hear your comments there. What next? What are your next plans for sort of developing yourself, the bond board, or working alongside us as well?
We've got to the point where we are, with the strategic leadership team and the board, looking at our strategies in terms of the next 5 years of growth. Obviously, the impact of COVID-19 has changed what sustainability means and looks like in terms of trading, because lots of people are can't trade at the moment, and lots of charities which were completely dependent on donations and trading income are really suffering. The bond board, which had less trading income and more grants, contracts than donations, and but it's about how we create that balance, and it's how we going forward have a diverse income stream, which has always been the ambition. So how we continue growing with diversity in terms of the work that we're doing, but actually reaching out to more people who would benefit from our services. There's people who are forgotten in the private rented sector, and there is a marvellous opportunity for the bond board to work with lots of private landlords right now who, for the first time, will be working with or having tenants who are on benefits, who otherwise would never come into contact with a service like ours. So there is an opportunity there for us to build a relationship for the future. So there's growth potential.
Terrific. You can see forwards, because right now it's so uncertain. So it's great to hear. Will Cranfield Trust, do you think the Cranfield Trust might be able to help you in going forwards?
Yeah, I guess whilst we've done a lot on the staff team and the strategic leadership team and myself, I think the next challenge for us is about how we address the change in needs of the governance of the organisation going forward, and how we get the governance to work at the next level as we get bigger and responsible for larger sums of money, and think about whether it's buying properties or taking loans or how we diversify, but at the same time staying true to our vision and our mission, and importantly to our beneficiaries. So it's about how we bring all that together as we grow. So it's not just growing for growing's sake, but making sure the governance that's supporting all of that is fit for purpose, because actually that could make the whole thing unravel. So hopefully the Cranfield Trust will help us in terms of our ambition of the next few months to recruit a new chair. Our chair's retiring after a number of years, after 9 years in position. So it's appropriate that they retire. But also in terms of that governance review about what governance at the bond board looks like for the next part of the journey, that it's fit for purpose, really. So that's where the Cranfield Trust will really help us.
I'm certain we can help with that, so I look forward to that. Andrew, listen, it was great. It's just always great listening to you, particularly hearing some of those comments. So thank you very, very much.
No, thank you, Nick. Thank you to everyone at Cranfield Trust. I can't recommend the Cranfield Trust enough. They've helped me enormously, and the organisation. It's a very, very different place, not just because of COVID-19, but because of the Cranfield Trust has had a serious. It's had a real serious positive impact through everything we do. It's really very, very good. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. And with the current situation, with the COVID-19 pandemic, how have you reacted and what changes have you had to make with the organisation?
It's been challenging because it's been quite so fast moving. We've got remote working. We've still got some people based in the offices who can't work from home for various different reasons, but we've moved to telephone calls. So we're calling all 723 of our tenants, asking, and what they've turned into is very much welfare calls, and people have enjoyed that human contact. We've partnered with local charities who we've known before, so they're not marriages of convenience, but we've known them for a long time. We'll work with them before, and we've been able to remodel funding that we've had from the lottery. So our van is now being used to deliver 190 food parcels every day, and that's in partnership with Sanctuaries, Angie's Angels, Greg's, and Tesco's. Which is really positive, and together we've been able to attract. There's lots of small bits of money to help with COVID-19, so £200 here, £500 there, which has all helped to buy some of those materials that we aren't getting donated to us, whether that's toothbrushes, those sorts of things, cleaning materials. Some of the things which just don't get donated, we've been able to do with that. That's been a brilliant partnership. We've had to review our recruitment. We had 7 vacant posts, and we are having to learn quite quickly how we fill and prepare for the problems that are coming down the line when private landlords can evict again in September. So we're getting on with our recruitment and our learning to do virtual 2-stage interviews and everything to make sure we get the right people with the right skills and the right attitudes. Gosh, the right attitude is really important to work with the landlords. So hopefully what we're wanting to do there is homeless prevention. We've applied to lots of funders, and we've talked to our funders about remodelling projects in light of COVID-19, and some of that's the immediate stuff, whether it's the van, and some of it's a bit more long term with regards telephone support and training and webinars for landlords. So it feels, if anything, we're incredibly busy right now in that response, but we are thinking of what's it going to be like in November, December of this year when the recession hits for people living in the private rented sector.
Well, great view, thank you. It's just nice to hear your immediate reactions. You've done well to keep everybody busy, and lovely also that you're thinking of bringing new staff on for the future challenges that you can see around the corner.
Yeah, I guess we've been lucky that we've not had to furlough anybody because we entered when the lockdown started at the beginning of this process. We were part of we're already part of a growth cycle with grant money and in terms of and the contracts that we had. So we were, in that sense, we're in a fortunate position, and therefore I think it's almost our duty and responsibility to step up to the plate and help the people who we can help, those our beneficiaries. So in a sense, we're quite lucky in that sense. But yeah, it's recruitment right. It's going to be our challenge over the next few months. Thank you.